first session. And we'll start with two ladies here, young researchers. We're going to talk about an interesting topic about the skills needed by learners to become employers. Again, skills mean the ability to do something. The more skills you have, the more the chance you have to be more employers. What are the sources of skills? What kind of skills? These and other issues will be discussed by the two young researchers in my right. I will introduce first Hanin Bukamal, Curriculum Development Advisor at Polytechnic, and Aisha, also from Polytechnic. She is an industrial specialist. We have 20 minutes to this presentation. Then we will take questions.
Good afternoon. As you mentioned, my name is Aisha from the Polytechnic. I'll be presenting today with my colleague Hanin Bukamal for a paper that we wrote together with Bryce McLoughlin and Ms.Ema. But first, I would like to tell you a little story. And to start this story, I would like to set the scene for the story. So please take a few moments to reflect back on your experiences in higher education. Imagine yourself as a student, sitting in a hall with hundreds of other students. Remember the kind of experience you had with your classmates and your tutors. What kind of relationship that you had with them? And second, I would like you to remember the things that you learned and how did you learn these things. Our presentation today will explain to you how we in the Polytechnic make the teaching method interesting to our students and instill employability skills in them. The teaching method that we're using is called PBL, which stands for Problem-Based Learning. So first, who we are. What is the Polytechnic? The Polytechnic is a higher education institution that offers career-focused programs to produce professional and enterprising work-ready graduates. This notion of work-ready graduates has been reflected in our mission and vision. It's so important for us that it was one of the 5 strategic goals that our strategic stakeholders agreed on. So how do we do that? How do we produce work-ready graduates? We depend on 3 pillars to do that. The first pillar, as I mentioned, is problem-based learning, which is basically a teaching method that uses real-life problems to stimulate learning. The second pillar that we're using is work-integrated learning, where we try to link the practical aspect with the theoretical aspect. So we need teaching more relevant to the industry and real industry problems. The last part is employability skills, which I'm going to focus about in my next slide. So, obviously, there are different definitions and terminologies that we use to refer to employability skills. By our definition of employability skills, is simply those generic skills that are required to be effective in any chosen occupation. And as Sheikh Hisham mentioned today, that we would like our graduates to be effective in whatever occupation they choose. It's not necessarily that they study something that they go and follow the same path. So what graduates really need are these employability skills. I'll walk you through each of the 8 employability skills that we adopted in the Polytechnic model to make it easier for you to make the link between how PBL enhances employability skills. But first I would like to talk about our model in the Polytechnic. The Polytechnic has adopted its model based on international review of literature, and particularly looking at Britain University's model, which is an Australian university. It has also done a local research, consulting local industries to make it more relevant to the Bahraini context. So we've got 8 employability skills that we would like our graduates to have. The first is self-management, where we would like our students to have self-discipline to pursue their own goals. Second comes teamwork. Obviously, teamwork is really important as employees need to interact with different partners and the work to produce a certain project. We would also like our students to be lifelong learning, whether it was in the formal or informal time. another important skill that is required by all work. And by communication, we're referring to both written and oral communication. Planning and organization is a skill, though it seems basic, but it's often lacked in our culture. So we try to, in informal ways, to enhance this skill in our students. Of course, we are in the 21st century, so we don't expect any graduate to obtain any job without having the necessary skill of technology. We also look at the ethical part and ethical use of technology. And in Polytechnic, our classes are equal to updates in technological aspects that help the students in this skill. Problem-based learning is another one of our skills that we would love our graduates to have. And PBL is one of the methods that we use to enhance the problem solving in our students. Initiative and enterprise is a skill that is often encouraged now by a lot of jobs, a lot of market regulators. And by that we mean that we want our students to create their own jobs rather than just depending on seeking the normal jobs that are in the market.
Thank you, Aisha. So now that Aisha explained to you the 8 employability skills that we want to instill in our students, I'm going to talk to you about the teaching approach that we have adopted, which is problem-based learning. If you're not familiar with problem-based learning, it's a teaching method that falls under student-centered learning, and it's gained a very high popularity over the years, where initially it was used in the medicine field, and now it's used across all disciplines around the world. Barrows defined PBL as the learning that results from the process of working towards the understanding of resolution of a problem. So how the PBL curricula works is that students are given a problem at the beginning of the course or beginning of the semester, and they have to work on the problem with only using their prior knowledge with groups of 5 to 8 students. So they're using their prior knowledge and inquiry in order to find a solution to this problem. So in a PBL environment, the role of the tutor shifts towards being more of a facilitator. So they're facilitating student learning rather than giving them all of the answers up front in the form of a lecture. This is the PBL process, which is a 7-step process. This is the essence of PBL. In order for our students to develop the skills that we want them to develop, they will need to go through these 7 steps. So I'll take you through each of them and explain which are the employability skills that they're likely to develop in each of those steps. Number 1 is setting the climate. So this is where the students form into groups and decide on their group rules and also their roles within the group members. So here they're likely to develop communication and teamwork. Step 2 is reaching a shared understanding of the problem. So using only their prior knowledge, they try to understand the problem and discuss and synthesize their ideas with their team members. So here they're likely to develop self-management and teamwork again. Step 3 is brainstorming. So they come together and they decide what do they know already, what do they need to know, and what they don't know. So again, here they develop skills such as teamwork. 4 is formulating learning issues. So whatever they don't know about the problem, they phrase it as questions, and then they assign each of these questions to individual group members who then go on into the next step, which is independent study. Each team member would take their questions and research it on their own to find the answers to the problem. In independent study, they're probably going to develop skills such as technology, learning, and problem solving. Then we have step 6, which is developing a response. In developing a response, they come back after their independent study time as a group and discuss what they've each found out in their independent study time. Then they critically analyze the responses and critique each other and possibly even engage in debate. So here's some of the skills highlighted are communication, team PBL process strengthens the development of skills such as self-directed learning, problem solving, lifelong learning, teamwork, critical thinking, and communication skills. So when students go in the world of work, what they often encounter is that they're given a problem by their manager or whoever, and they ask them to solve this problem within a group. So they're not given a lecture previously. So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to resemble real life work in order to prepare them to become work-ready graduates. PBL was initially piloted in Bahrain Polytechnic back in 2011, and we did survey students to find out what they thought about this approach. The students reported that they had increased engagement in their subjects, as well as they also said that they were over-prepared for their work placement. Course-based PBL is the model that we decided to implement at the beginning of this year. Course-based PBL is where the courses are separate entities that eventually make up a program. We decided this is the best fit model considering our current capacity, availability of staff, and resources. The future of PBL. After 5 years of our implementation of course-based PBL, the programs will have the option to choose whether to remain on course-based PBL or move on to theme-based PBL, which is where a series of interconnected themed problems drive the curriculum. We're also planning to survey students and tutors to find out their perceptions of PBL and whether this approach actually led to the development of employability skills that we want our students to have. We're going to end this presentation by showing you PBL in practice in Bahrain Polytechnic. This has been done for over many years, and we call it the Motorsports PBL project. It's a one-year engineering project divided into 5 courses and a total of 90 credits. So at the beginning of the year, the tutors introduce the problem to the students, which is designing this vehicle. Over the year, they introduce smaller problems to them in order for them to eventually be able to design the vehicle. And as you can see, we have a picture of our students working on the model early on, and then a picture of the final result. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Aisha. So, learners, in order to be employable, they need outlook skills. They, broadly speaking, 2 categories: soft and hard skills. And through the utilization of the approach they outlined and the process of that approach, the problem-based approach, learners can learn all of these skills that make the work employable from the market. Now we'll take a few questions from the floor. We have 2 questions, I think, before we start the second session. Yes, please.
I would like to make a comment on the 21st century skills. Now we are 15 years in this century, right? The question, we Arab University, where are we now regarding each of these skills? If you survey what happened in Europe and the States, in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, we found the educational systems have developed systems to meet the 21st century skills. As an academic, when I teach students and bring them in teams, I find difficulty. If I want to teach them how to motivate them to think critically, I find difficulty. So I think one of the issues which should be addressed in this conference and the quality should look at is the 21st century skills, which has to be reframed in our part of the world. I'm not saying this out of my mind. I've made some search and I found we are really very much behind. Thank you very much.
Dr. Tiscombe. My question is quite related to our previous question, is that we talk about these employability skills, we talk about the programs you're introducing and the approach you're introducing to improve these. How are you going to get feedback from employers on whether the skills are appropriate for the workplace or not?
Well, we're already doing that. I don't know if you straightened when I said that we actually adopted these skills from consultation in local industry. But I must admit that I'm kind of answering this question as well. That we've done that during the beginning of our establishment. The police academy is not that old anyways. But we are planning to conduct another survey with the industry to see if there are any changes. And the other thing you're asking about is how do you know that these skills are relevant to employers and the employers' feedback? We send our students from time to time to work placements and corporate projects. And in those, we've got a survey for employers to assess the employability skills of our students. So they would rate how the student is doing in each of these skills. But if your question was more about if these skills are still relevant to employers, that is something that we're thinking of consulting the local industry and working on.
Good afternoon. I just have a question. I really appreciate the knowledge-based learning, all the skills that you're putting to your students. But I'm just wondering, is there a data that verifies or says that it was really instilled to the students based on if the graduates really showing this kind of skills once they graduated? So at least we will know if it's really effective way of teaching our students.
In terms of international research in this area, yes, it has shown that it develops these skills. For the Polytechnic, we are planning on doing that once we have implemented PPL fully in all of our programs, because it's not yet implemented in all of the programs. So once we do that, hopefully we'll share the results with all of you.
I think I want to make a comment on what the gentleman, the first gentleman said. I guess some of these employability skills perhaps not being relevant or 21st century skills having to be reviewed. I'm not so sure if that is a pertinent remark, because at the end of the day, if these are the skills that employers are seeking, if these are the skills that employers seek to value in graduates, not only at the moment that they graduate, but also throughout the whole career, well then I believe it is very pertinent that higher education institutes start addressing these particular skills, whether that happens at the year 2000 or whether it happens at the year 2015. Now, I take your point that it requires a very different approach towards dealing with students in terms of motivation, in terms of critical thinking, etc., etc. But that is why novel teaching and learning techniques and methods, like for instance problem-based learning, or anything on the scope of guided inquiry or guided discovery all the way through the problem-based learning, I think can be very useful. So I think that the age of the sage on the stage is over, kind of. I think it is very necessary that at this point in time we need to start putting the student central to the learning environment and to the transformation process. And that we start thinking about, well, what are particular capabilities that we have to awaken in the individual that go much broader than technical knowledge and technical theory. So, yeah, that's my point. It's not exactly a question, but it's just a comment about the gentleman.
Thank you very much. People in this session is going to talk about ranking universities, an issue that is around for a long time. It started earlier in the States, followed by UK and other countries. Now it's become a very important issue. The question will be why we need to rank universities. What influences such ranking will do? Who will be benefit from that ranking? And what is the ranking process? And where is the quality assurance process fit in this ranking? About this topic, I'd like to introduce the second speaker, Dr. Sufyan Shahrawi. He is a senior consultant in BIBA and Institute for Public Administration. he has a lot of research on the higher education, well-known figure in the quality assurance, and aside from that, also he's a friend of mine. Please welcome Dr. Sahab.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ahmed, for the introduction, and the best part of the presentation is the friendship, and I very much cherish it. Now, my presentation is a bit long, but I will really storm through it because there are some key messages that I would like to deliver, and that will be practically enough. Let me just introduce it very quickly, although Dr. Ahmed has done so. The issue of ranking is very important in the sense, not because it, at least this is my first perspective, because of its impact on universities themselves, or at least not all universities, but because it is becoming a big business and somehow it is being pushed down the so-called university throat. And so we'd like to know how to deal with it and what it is exactly. So today I'll just give you a brief about what are these different rankings, especially the ones that are now coming into the region, and they are the major rankings in the world, first. And second thing, well, how do we deal with them? I mean, is there something good for us? Is there a problem? Okay now? All right. Let me quickly start. As you can see the title, I mean, the winner is because we're really almost kind of playing a game, as you can see, and we'd like to see if it is a really cutthroat exercise or is it really something that will help our universities get to prominence. So what are they? We're talking about league tables, basically. League tables of prominent universities, either worldwide, regionally, or even locally, be it at the institutional, program, or subject level. As Dr. Ahmed has said, it started a long time ago in the US, then picked up by the UK. As a matter of fact, when it was picked up by the UK, that's when it became international, and now it's a worldwide phenomenon that is practically ranking everywhere. All right. Universities basically are ranked based on performance. Mostly research counts more than anything else, and we see different rankings. And the most popular ones, you probably know them, the ARWU or the Shanghai ranking as they are known, the Time to Higher Education, and the QS ranking. Now there is also the US News and World Report ranking that has come into the region and was published for the first time in 2014. Of course, these are not only rankings, there are tons of them. Most of them, they rank universities, but some of them also, they rank higher education systems. The Universitas 21, for example, 21st, is a ranking of higher education systems. It's actually very useful in comparing different countries because it includes data, GDP, etc. Now, already, as I said, there are many of them. Some of them are worldwide. Some of them are regional. Those are the ones that we focus on later on because we're talking about the QS Asia, the QS BRICS, the BRICS and emerging economies, the time to higher education, BRICS and emerging economies, the US News, Arab region, etc. Let's start with the first one, very briefly. The Shanghai ranking. Probably all of you know it. This is the one that was started in Zhengzhou University, I think that's the name of the university, and now it's called Shanghai rankings. It is among the three most influential ones along with the QS, the time to higher education. The criteria, as you can see them, they are research-based. Basically, the number of alumni who are Nobel laureates. The field medalists, that is people that are really have some big international awards in their particular field. The number of frequently quoted researchers, number of papers published in Nature and Science, which are the two top journals in the natural sciences, or in science in general, and the number of articles cited in the major citation indices, SSCI and SSC, I guess, or SCI. This is a purely research-based, as you can see. It doesn't include teaching or anything else. It is, of course, it is worldwide, but also now it has some regional ramifications like the Greater China. This is the term Greater China, of course, which would include Taiwan and does not include Hong Kong, by the way, but in an academic sense. I don't want to get into some diplomatic problems with the Taiwanese and the Chinese. The Macedonian higher education institutions also is the use of the Shanghai ranking in the country of the former Islamic Republic of Macedonia. Now, it is the most influential one because it really ranks the elite of the elite. Basically, if you make the Shanghai ranking, that means you are really top. That's why you find the Harvard, the MITs, the Stanford, the Oxford, Cambridge, and even increasing universities from other regions of the world, including from the region, in the top 500. It also probably the most popular one because it has an objective methodology. It does not change. It's not only ranking where the methodology is pretty much fixed. It offers a comparative view of research performance and reputation. And as I said, it's consistent, it has clarity of purpose, and it's transparent. The other ones, they rely on complex formulas, sometimes not easy to understand what they really rank and how the ranking is obtained. But as you can see from the criteria, it has also evident progress. It undermines completely humanity and quality of instruction. That is, a good university is the only university that does good research. It relies too much on award factors, and it favors Anglo-Saxon higher education, and all of the rankings do that, by the way. And just incidentally, the 500 plus dead Nobel Prizes, they are worth a significant portion of all living researchers put together. That is, if you happen to have a Nobel Prize winner, even after he dies or she dies, you're still, pretty much you'll stay in the rankings. The QS ranking is the most extensive, probably the most commercial as well. It is published by the British Barbarin Simmons. At the beginning, it was combined with the Times Higher Education until 2009, and then they split, and since 2010, it is on its own. So is Times Higher Education, we'll be talking about shortly. It relies on a massive survey, if you want to. I mean, in 2011, it included 33,740 people who were surveyed across the world, which tells you about the input of data. I mean, it includes like more than 500,000 data points. And of course, the way it works is participants, they have to nominate up to 30 universities based on different criteria that we'll look at now. Academic reputation 40%, faculty-student ratio, of course this is based on geometric data, citations to faculty, recruiter review. So it is more composite, as you can see. It does not rely only on research, although it does favor research as well. Of course it is worldwide, but also by faculty and subject, but also they have a QS 50, top 50, under 50, which means the university that younger than 50 years old, that is were created less than 50 years ago. Now there are regional rankings, which is the US, Asian, Latin American, and BRICS, but also there is a line to the Arab world that has just started, and I will talk about at the end. To go to the positive, last data set, composite, as I said, the negatives, of course, is the use of opinion surveys. Today, if I came to ask you what is the best university in the region, you will think about the ones that were ranked last year. So basically, that is that problem, or the ones that you know. Favoritism for the science over the humanities as usual, and of course, it undermines universities that do not use English as their primary language. If you use Arabic, French, or whatever, and that is why, for example, we will see later on that Latin America does not rank well at all, although they have very good universities. A university that use only Arabic is pretty much absent. Even French universities struggle to place in the top rankings. The Times Higher Education ranking is the third most influential, if you want. It was published with the QS up to 2009, and then it split. And of course, when it split, it started relying on the Scopus database because citation is the major component. Therefore, they use different databases, either the Thomson Reuters or the Scopus, amongst other things, which is Elsevier. It has the criteria: teaching 30%, research 30%, citation and research impact 32.5%. I think there is a miscalculation here, but don't worry about it. But pretty much, I mean, those are the elements that are taken into consideration. And of course, it has many, not only worldwide, but it has for different regions, including a pilot again for the region. One particularity of the Times Higher Education ranking is that it uses the same criteria across all regions, unlike the other ones, where the criteria change between region and the other, between ranking and the other. So it is consistent across regions, which means that you can have better comparison with this ranking. These are the positives, as I said. Only global university ranked to example university teaching environment, so really looking at teaching. And among the negatives, the same as the other ones. Non-English instruction research is undermined. Favoritism for the science over the humanities. And look at the percentages of respondents from Latin America, despite the claim of being global. Latin America, this is in, I believe in 2011 or 12, 3.6%, and Africa 2.3%. It's not really global. It's more of a North American, Asian than, no, is it? Yeah. North American, Asian than really Latin American or African. Now, we come to the rankings in the Arab region. It's a big business for us. That's why they're coming in. Remember that these rankings, they're creating markets, because then they collect data from universities, they come back and sell the data to the universities. In terms of benchmarking, as services to, like the QQA stars, for example, when you like to place yourself somewhere, tons of data, consulting, you name it, right? So they create the market, then they sell the services. Let's see some of the results. For example, if you take the Shanghai ranking, you have, I think, 3 Saudi universities, not just 2, that are ranked, 2 that are ranked in the top 200 universities, which is the thing in Saudi. They're both in the latest one. They are in the 151 to 200 first universities. Again, 3 Saudi universities are ranked in the top 150 engineering schools in the world. This is for the Shanghai ranking. And 3 Saudi universities make it into the top 75 of the Shanghai top 200 math list. If you remember the things result that we saw before, so the is very low, even lower than Bahrain when it comes to math. And we'll talk about this, how things change suddenly at the university level later on. Now, if you look at the QS rankings of the top 863 universities in the world, the list includes 29 universities in 10 Arab countries. So we talk about the Shanghai, now we move to the QS. Remember, we have 4 rankings here. KFUPM, which is King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals, and AUB, the American University of Beirut, they are the ones that rank in the best in the Arab region at 225 and 250. Now, one thing you might notice, they're not the same university that rank in the Shanghai ranking. Partly because now we've moved to other factors such as teaching, not just research. All right. Now, of these universities, the top 863, there are 8 in the Gulf region, 4 in Saudi, 3 in the UAE, and 1 in Bahrain. There is an evident rise of Saudi Arabian universities in the region, primarily because of their performance in science. And most of them, the Arab region, they rank because of science. There is one notable exception, which is the American University of Sharjah, which ranks among the top 150 institutions for English language and literature. It's probably, there is also the American University of Beirut, another ranking that also ranks the humanities, the American University of Cairo, and one other ranking. But generally speaking, it's only for science and engineering fields that Arab universities rank. As I said, the American University of Cairo, Cairo University, and Azhar make it to the US rankings, but they've been declining over the years. Ironically or interestingly, institutions in North Africa, Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco are completely absent from the US rankings. There are many reasons. The use of the French language, but also certain philosophy of teaching, but also possibly a crisis of higher education in those countries. The QS rankings, other than this world ranking of the top 863, there is an Arab region pilot that has been run in 2014. It has not been yet published as an official ranking, but it is there as a pilot. We get the usual suspects in the first places, that is the first places of the QS ranking worldwide, which is KFUPM, KSU, and King Abdulaziz University. In first, third, and fifth place, respectively, all of them from Saudi Arabia. Now, this is only ranking for 2 Jordanian universities are in the top 10. Otherwise, you see that now suddenly that there is a change. And if you take one of the rankings, and we see with the time the US News and World Report, you will not see Jordanian universities. So there is a really large contradiction between the different rankings. The first North African university in the QS ranks 40, which is the University of Tunis al-Manab. Bahrain lists 2 universities in this pilot, the Arabian Gulf University of Bahrain. And there is a large contradiction between this ranking and the US News and World Report, and we try to explain this a little bit. We come to this famous US News and World Report ranking, which has been released in 2014. Its rankings cover 16 countries across the Arab world, and it covers 16 subjects over a 5-year period. To be ranked, you had to have 400 or more total publications tracked by Scopus, of course. We're not talking about other databases, but generally they tend to overlap in terms of citations, which means an average of 80 papers per year across the disciplines. And out of the 800 plus Arab universities, only 91 would satisfy that requirement, which tells you what the status also of research, or at least the proliferation of teaching institutions in the Arab region. Okay, I can't read it from there, but I get it some morning. Okay. So, 9 ranking indicators were all research related. Now I want you to keep in mind about 2 things. You have the Shanghai, US News and World Report. These are pure research rankings. And then you have the QS and the Times Verification. They are composite. That means that they include some teaching and that is part of the reason why you don't get the same universities. So that's where the difference is. Another thing is branch campuses operated by the current university in another country have been excluded from the US News and World Report and from the other rankings as well, and we'll see later on in a new pilot they will be included by the Times Verification, which means that the 33 branch campuses in the UAE, which is the number 1 in the world, in terms of number of branch campuses, and the number 1 in Qatar, they have not been accounted for. Now, if we wanted to draw some, again, about the US News and World Report, definitely the size of the university matters, and for all rankings for that matter. If you don't reach a certain critical mass or size, you have no chance of playing the ranking game. The notable exception is again the University of Sharjah, which has only a little bit more than 5,000 students, and in some fields they can peak. The top 3 countries in the US News and World Report, which are Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Algeria. Now we see Algeria appearing in this ranking. The 3 combined, they have 52% of all countries, of all universities. And there are 7 countries that have only 1 university in the table. And this is the only ranking where North African countries place more universities than the Gulf. So there is a shift towards North Africa in terms, so if you are sitting in a country of North Africa, you definitely would want to claim the US News and World Report to be the best ranking because it does give you some advantage. And this is the last one that has come. In fact, it hasn't been released yet. It will be released next week in Doha. So there is just some preliminary results. Now this one has included branch campuses, and so Texas A&M places first, followed by the Liberals American University, which is number 52 in the US News ranking, right? Which is the ranking that we just saw. King Abdulaziz University is there. Qatar University, which was number 29 in US News, now is number 4. And the American University of Beirut is there too. So there are certain universities that will come back, between different rankings, like American University of Beirut, King Abdulaziz, and some of the other Saudi universities. The full ranking of 30 universities will be released at the MENA University Summit in Doha, which is next week. Let me conclude with the BRICS rankings before I give the final overall assessment of all these things. This is the Times Verification BRICS and emerging economies. Now the University of Marathi, of course, it includes only 3 countries from the Arab region: the UAE, Morocco, and Egypt. And now the University of Marathi, is the first Arab university. A newcomer altogether, hasn't ranked almost anywhere else except for the title. The US is a world record quite late, but now it appears at 50 in front of the UAE University and the American University of Sharjah that ranked 71 and 84. Saudi and the rest. Seems Saudi dominates most of this ranking. Saudi universities are the only ones that are part of all three major world rankings. Now there are of course some objective factors for that. Saudi Arabia is the country that has the highest university spend as a percentage of GDP in the world. There are now currently approximately 150,000 Saudi students studying abroad. Whereas you find other historical universities in the Arab region like Al-Azhar in Cairo, Zaytun and Tunis, and Qarawin and Fez that practically do not appear. One of the reasons why Arab universities they do not rank well because they don't have the capacity to provide the required data. I mean, you really need to have an information data structure. But also, and we'll get to that in terms of what are the implications. For example, Science Magazine report accuses two Saudi universities, and basically the ones that are ranked at the top, and the Shanghai report, of inflating research and rankings performance by paying highly cited foreign faculty to create on-paper only affiliation with Saudi research institutions. This game is not only played there, this game is played worldwide, by the way, and that is why we're talking about a game. The overall assessment, rankings are an oversimplified picture of the mission of the university, particularly elitist. They rely heavily on publication and citation. They neglect the arts, humanities, social sciences. Teaching, and most of them is, or the most important one, is given very little weight. They discriminate against non-English speaking university. They're commercially driven, susceptible to manipulation, and the input is primarily limited to the ivory towers. That is, we don't get input from outside of universities. And as we saw, rankings, they yield contradictory results, and the calculations are complex except for the Shanghai report. What has been its impact? Increasingly being used to shape institutional public policy. It has some positive impact. It fosters accountability, encourages the collection of reliable data. It can be used as a benchmarking tool. However, there's another question that we have to ask.
-5.
Okay. Is innovation islands. I mean, when you have top universities, normally you should externally validate it. For example, I look at Saudi Arabia, great. They are really placing universities in the top 500 universities, top 200 universities now. How do I externally validate that? I have to have confirmation from outside of the university that there is an impact of that outside, correct? That's really where it would be much more credible. I mean, I'm talking about Saudi Arabia because it's something you know it's right here, but of course you could apply across the board. The Guardian, the number game talks about the name of universities today do little planning. Instead, they focus on manipulating the data they report because this data influences league tables. Obviously, they are talking about the English situation, which tells you that this is a world phenomenon. To get further in trouble with neighboring countries, the latest ranking that makes the University of Qatar appears. It's funded by the Qatar Foundation. I mean, so isn't there a conflict of interest?
Already you have 3 red cards. My friend.
I had some recommendations for universities, but you can look at them. I will leave them for this, and you can.
I have to call for the security. Thank you very much for your extensive, comprehensive presentation. We did it on time. So according to Aisha and Hanin, you have very good time management. Well, before we are going to open the floor for questions, but since I'm the chair, I will start by myself. I cannot have the privilege, right? To ask the question first. No? Now, you covered a lot of methods for is there an attempt now to come up with some kind of universal ranking
is a very relevant question. As a matter of fact, in my conclusion, I said that universities, what they should try to do is to look at these different rankings and come up with one that is suitable for them, that will help them drive their strategy. Now, on the supply side, it will not happen because it's commercially driven. Everybody wants to make the money. Why did US split from the time of higher education? Because there was a lot of money involved and they could not agree on sharing the pie, so each one went his or their own way and they make the money. But universities can definitely work around the different rankings and come up with one that will align with the objectives.
Okay, we have time for 2 questions. I will first Dr. Sultan Arabi, then we'll have BP3.
Thank you so much for the good lecture, which you started mentioning from the beginning, that is a business. And that's exactly what's ranking nowadays as a business. Most of those companies, they try to approach us in the Association of the Arab Universities, because they want to make more money from the Arab countries. QS, they have conducted a conference in Abu Dhabi last year, and just recently one in India, and they are talking about this. Shanghai based on research. Therefore, University of Cairo, which has 250,000 students, is excluded. And how can Texas A&M in Qatar, which has only 150 students in Qatar, can be ranked #1 if you compare it to Cairo, or to University of Jordan, or to University of Saudi? Are they considering all the publication from Texas A&M and Texas in the States? I think that's what they do. This is one thing. When you said there's 2 universities from Jordan, they just appear. Many universities, they don't like to apply to pay the money for those companies. And that's the reason. We have more than 700 universities in the Arab countries nowadays. But how many universities, they pay the money, usually high money, for those companies in order to compete? And how can some universities, they hire some researchers in the States or in Europe just to write their names on some universities, and you know this, how this can be applied to our universities. We feel in our association, the Association of the Arab Universities, this subject is really does not apply to us. We need a lot of time. If you are talking about research, how much money funded from the private sectors? In all the Arab countries, research from the private sectors count only around 10 to 15%. Whereas in Korea or Japan or in America or UK, almost 90% coming from the private sectors. Therefore, this is contradict each other. Thank you.
And I had it in one of the slides. Here, the first one. Playing the ranking game is expensive. Not worth the investment unless you are a truly research-oriented university. It's too expensive.
I was getting very excited when you were very critical about these rankings, but then at the very end I was getting disappointed because you said, so align yourself with one of these and you can start playing the game. Why do we have to play the game? Why can we not distantiate ourselves from this? If we look at the evolution of higher education as it is taking place now, we've got online courses, we've got modular courses, we've got MOOCs and all of that. The evolution, I don't think that the future of higher education, be it universities or be it polytechnics or be it whatsoever, lies in these rankings. I have no faith in this. The critique that we already see here today, and this is just a couple of people that have been inspired by a very critical talk of yours, already shows that I don't think that the generation of today falls in line with these kinds of rankings. Now, I understand that branding is something that will always have a part in our life, but at the same time, why don't institutions try to distantiate themselves from that and maybe create their own reputation, not on the basis of something that is clearly conspicuous mechanism of ranking?
I don't think I said play the game. To the contrary, I said really don't play the game. However, if
there is some positive thing together with rankings, the methodology underlying them, if they can be of use to you to build your institutional research infrastructure, not to reach out to that, just use some of their tools for benchmarking purpose or whatever.
We have 1 minute to go for one short question, please.
I share similar opinion with Professor Sultan, but still I want to say something about this. Number one, I agree with you that it's profit-making companies. The more you pay, the ranking will be better. Number two, we cannot allow all of our university go to this ranking game. It's too costly. Okay, but what we must do is to improve our fundamentals. Keep the numbers of PhD holders in the university increase. Keep the numbers of publications, especially increase. Okay, and then within the whole game, different types of ranking. Don't go for all. Take one. Malaysia will be more comfortable with the QS because the time period only lasts 10 years. The data accumulation. So we focus on the QS. We let one university from Malaysia to be on the top 200 as a university in Malaysia. But for other public universities, we said improve your fundamentals. Then we can proceed with the better quality of education in your country.
In a way, I agree because I said, unless you are truly research-oriented university, you can play the game without much of an adjustments, and you are in the league like the one university that is in Malaysia, that is fine. But other universities just use the ranking as a basis to establish your institutional research. That's it. That is to measure up against some of these targets. And they don't need to be from a single ranking. You can actually cherry pick.
Thank you very much. And before we end our session, I would like to apologize for the presenter, for the audience who are not having enough time for this interesting topic. So because we have raised the flag many times for me, so I have to go with the rules. Sorry again for both of you. And then please give your hand for our presenter, Dr. Sufyan Sahrawi.